Welcome to Selfish Confidence, a place where we can connect and be real about how hard it is to be your damn self. My name is Jess, and my goal is to help you build confidence and belief in yourself to live any life path you want, even if it's unconventional. It's time to flip off societal pressures and connect with women who've also felt on the outside by their life choices. We're here to encourage you to grab the mic and speak your truth. I know it can be scary, but we're in this together. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Selfish Confidence Podcast. It's Jess here, and I have another Jess here, which is a really fun thing to have. I love when we have like multiple Jesses. Like we come from the era of the Jessicas, right? So I have my new friend Jessi Harold here, the author of Mothershift. How you doing, sis?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on. This is pretty exciting.
It is so exciting. I heard about your book from my friend Ashley Cooley with Birth Baby Sleep. And when she was like, "Oh, you got to talk to Jessi." And I was like, "Okay, I don't even know what being a mom is or what that is or what's happening to my body, all of these things." But I felt as soon as I opened up Mothershift that I had been seen in a way that I hadn't really allowed myself to be seen through this journey. I
Mhm.
think sometimes I think my way of thinking is weird and it's not the norm. But then when I was reading your book, I said, okay, I think it might be the norm for all of us. We're all thinking this way and we're just not talking about it. So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey, Jessi, and your journey with writing Mothershift?
Yeah, totally. So, I guess my the big picture journey started about 17 years ago when I became a doula, and I have done that work supporting mothers, and then also am a coach for people who are going all through all kinds of life transitions as well. And so that's kind of been my professional journey, and then I became a mother myself 13 years ago. And if you're doing the math, you can hear in that story that I was a doula before I was a mother. And I think that sort of was the first catalyst for me in writing this book about the transition to motherhood, because as I approached my own motherhood, a lot of the questions that people normally have about this journey, especially in these times, you and I are talking, you're at the end of your pregnancy, especially during those kind of tender weeks and months, it's all about the birth. It's about this kind of like pretty small, hopefully quite small amount of time in your life, that takes up a lot of bandwidth, and having attended births for a few years at that point when I became pregnant with my eldest child, those weren't really my questions because I'd been to a lot of births. I'd helped people breastfeed. I'd helped change diapers. I'd done a lot of these things. And so my questions were all about what's going to happen to me, like to who I am. Um, and I think that's sort of what originally oriented me towards this overall question that I talk about in Mothershift, which is about matrescence, which is the fancy word that we use for the 2 to 3 year long transition into motherhood. And it's this transition that is biological, psychological, cultural, it's economic, it's spiritual. It kind of impacts the entire ecosystem of our lives. And so those were the questions that I was asking back then. And they really kind of shaped then the rest of my kind of motherhood journey, as well as the rest of my career and the way that I wanted to work with mothers, exploring this. And so that's sort of like the long arc of the writing of Mothershift. And it became particularly urgent for me, really, to get this work out into the world because matrescence is becoming a more common term. More and more people are hearing it. We're kind of growing some awareness, and that's awesome. And my work around matrescence is not just that it happens, like that it's a thing, but how it happens and how it unfolds. And that's kind of what Mothershift is all about.
I think that's why I also love it so much too, because everyone keeps saying, "Oh, you're going to change." Like this is a massive change happening in your life. Like you're going to be a whole new person. You hear it over and
Yeah.
over and over again. And but nobody can really pinpoint how you're going to be a new person or what that new person is going to be. And as someone who's done a lot of work in the confidence space for women, it's just like, okay, like, but I'm pretty cool with who I am right now. And you talk about that for yourself in your book, and you're just like, I'm going to become a new person. I hope I like them. And that can be really scary too. So, like, what do women do through this process of being told over and over again that they're going to be new, brand new?
Yeah.
But, like, what if they don't wanna?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's funny the way that it's sort of shared with us, I think, often with new mothers or expectant mothers is like, it almost sounds a little ominous, doesn't it? Like
Yes.
you're going to change. Everything is going to change. And I, I'm sure as you've read in the book, like I don't mince my words. Like it's not always changes that are super welcome, um, or that come bidden, Um, and I think we need to be honest about that because what we're steeped in, and I think part of this, I don't know about you, but when people tell me, oh, this is going to happen, like you're going to change dramatically. My response to that, as a fairly headstrong, kind of happy with my life right now, thanks very much, person was, no, I won't. Not me. Like maybe everybody else, but certainly not me. Um, and surprise, surprise. Like it does change us. And I think so we've got this cultural narrative that says that you shouldn't change in motherhood. You should bounce back. You should get back to normal. We encourage mothers, get out of the house, do the things you love to do, all of these things, which in the right doses at the right times can be great advice. But in our culture, as with many things, it becomes a little pathologic, right? And we're fighting to return to that person that is no longer. She just doesn't exist. Here's the thing that's hopefully a little less ominous that we forget to tell mothers, which is I think you are going to like the person you become because we become someone entirely new. And when we're well supported in that process, um, we uncover parts of ourselves, either that we didn't know were there, or parts of ourselves that um, our culture in many ways has kind of asked us to make quiet or make small. And there's potential there. And I say potential because you've probably already noticed, and people listening to this, if you're mothers, know that motherhood is like steeped in these messages about what a good mother is or a
Mm.
perfect mother and how you should be and what you should and shouldn't do and all of this stuff. So, I mean, we're swimming against the tide in a lot of ways to become the most authentic, powerful versions of ourselves in motherhood. And also, like, the time is ripe for it, right? And that's why I say, like, we need to be well supported in this because the culture will draw us away from ourselves. It'll draw us into that kind of perfect mother um, mold and pull us away from our inner knowing. But again, this time is just ripe for becoming more of who you are, actually.
Right. Yeah. And I like that perspective a lot more than like that fear mongering of like, you're gonna change. Just you
Yeah.
wait. And I thought one of the things you talked about in your book too was like, and this was surprising to me, knowing you're a doula, knowing that you kind of know the things that are gonna happen that a lot of us don't know, right? Like I don't know what's gonna happen in that birth room. I've never been in a birth room before. We're going in blind, but you knew those things. And you still had hesitations with starting a family. Your husband was ready, and you were just like, I don't know if I want to step into this. And I really related to that because I never wanted kids. And it took a lot of deep rooted work for me to be open to starting a family. Like, I had to do a lot. And I think that that is kind of the norm right now for a lot of women because we've been told almost only the horror stories or like, oh, it's just so beautiful. Look at this cute baby I made, but I'm not getting any sleep and all these things, right? What do you think needs to change for us to be more open to this? Like, what changed for you in order to be more open to it? To starting a family, I should say.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a very pretty answer for you,
That's
really,
okay.
because, you know, because I think a decision like that is such an imperfect process. I didn't have this moment where I was like, yep, sign me up. I am suddenly, doing this. And maybe for people who haven't read the book, I'll give a little context that, I did have I mean, I still have a very rich life, but I had a very cool life. Pre-kids. I was a scuba instructor, traveling the world, like all of these really neat things. And was pretty ambivalent about having kids, but particularly I had had two experiences of supporting other mothers who had really, really painful postpartum times. And I think that kind of gave me pause. And kind of opened my eyes to what happens beyond the birth room in a kind of a different way. And, you know, I think, I mean, so ultimately for me, the decision was like, yes, I do have two children, but I think it's complex. And I remember being like 32 weeks pregnant with my first child, and I went for coffee with a person she's my best friend, and she went on after that conversation to become a midwife, not because of that conversation, but shortly afterwards, maybe.
You inspired
But
her.
I don't know. But she says she'll never forget it because I was 32 weeks pregnant. She was asking, how's it going? You must be so excited. And I felt comfortable enough with her to say, I really don't know. I am pretty worried about this. And I wasn't really talking about the birth at that point because, again, like, I mean, birth is not predictable. I did not know how it would unfold, but um, I was so worried about what would happen to me, and I was really ambivalent. And she said that in hearing me, it gave her permission to feel ambivalence when she then got pregnant with her first child a few years later. So I think it's like it's talking about it that's so important. And we sort of lessen the shame of these complex feelings by just naming them. And I think there's something here that is just kind of filled with potential, which is that motherhood invites us into a comfort with paradox and complexity that is unlike many other life experiences. We kind of get initiated into the ability to hold the both and this kind of so as you talked about there's this kind of dichotomy in the stories about motherhood. There's this sort of like milk drunk smiles, the like, whatever, sunlit fields and cookies after school or whatever it is, this idealized version where we're all very grateful and, hashtag blessed. And then there's this other version that is like so challenging and we're stepping on Legos and we haven't slept in a year and, whatever. And the irony here is that motherhood is always both of those things all at the same time, every single moment of every single day. And that's hard to wrap your head around when, especially, pre-motherhood. It's a bit hard for our culture to wrap its collective head around because we like dichotomies. We like things to be one way or the other. The cool thing about this initiation that we get in motherhood, in this ability to hold paradox, is that when we look to the field of adult development psychology, so like the way that we learn and grow and evolve as adults, one of the key markers of maturity and like wisdom and eldership is the ability to hold paradox and complexity. So this is one of the, and I talk about quite a few of these things in the book where um, motherhood initiates us into these skills and capacities that actually make us um, more mature humans, more capable of leadership and eldership and increasing our capacity to live in this increasingly complex world. Um, so yeah, isn't it interesting that we persist at, trying to kind of make motherhood one or the other thing, and yet, there's this huge potential here, for us to realize that this is one of the most paradoxical, complex experiences in our human existence.
It's so true when you lay it out like that because we often only see one or the other. It's like, yeah, you see the cute babies, or you see the not so cute moments of
Yeah.
motherhood. And I think I focus too deeply on like the not so cute moments. And I think a lot of us do, right? Because you hear people like to scare you again and they'll be like, just wait, just wait, just wait. And you see only those harder pieces. And it makes a lot of women fearful of this process. And I think that's why I appreciated Mothershift focusing away from the difficulties and obviously also highlighting that it's not going to be beautiful all the time, but like focusing more on that journey that I'm taking and who I'm becoming versus just like poopy diapers and sleepless nights. And I think that that's what's so special about this book being different and you laying it out so nicely for us to feel seen is just something totally new. And I'd love to know how writing this book supported your own journey. Like, was there anything through writing this book that you were just like, oh, like, I can see things differently for myself too, because you are a person who does a lot of research, and I'm so grateful for that because I don't. And so having someone like you do it and lay it in a book like this is so wonderful. So how has this just like opened your eyes to a new way of being?
Yeah. Um, there's a couple layers to this question. The first is, so I have another book as well that I wrote back in 2019 called Project Body Love, The Quest to Love My Body and the Surprising Truth I Found Instead. And I found out the hard way in that book that when you publish a book, so this is my belief anyways, my experience, um, the universe kind of says like, hey, you want to talk about this in this big, big, big way? There's big, big, big energy around that. And what happened to me when I published that book, um, it's all about loving my body or not loving my body and coming to peace with that. And 2 weeks after I published it, I had a major health crisis that had me like really reorienting my whole relationship with my body for the next 3 years. And like, I can't help but see that that was well, was it a coincidence? I don't know. It was sort of like, um, you want to be an expert in this? You want to, I guess in that book, I never professed to be an expert, but like, you want to like put this much energy into this topic. Well, we're gonna make sure you're prepared to stand behind it, you know?
Oof, yeah.
Yeah. So when I started writing Mothershift, I sort of expected the same kind of thing. And it, the same thing happened. In its own way, right? I have gone through a couple of my own real firewalks with motherhood in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think a lot of us have with the pandemic. It's been a rough couple of years for moms. Um, and yeah, my kids are 9 and 13 now. And we've had a really challenging couple of years, and they've made me in so many ways. And I think like maybe this book, I don't know if I wrote this book from that perspective. It's almost more like that perspective came and I was able to add it to the book, like that it's so challenging and it has so much potential. And it's almost like you can't have one without the other. And I don't say that to mean that we shouldn't support mothers and that we shouldn't work to change systems of oppression that affect mothers and that we shouldn't make things better. But motherhood has always been hard. It's always been inherently transformative from the time that humans started giving birth, right? Like yes, there's all these conditions of our modern culture, but it's always been an initiation and it comes with challenges and it's those challenges that also then create the strengths that we have. And so yeah, I've gone on this parallel journey with this book. And it's been wild. And I also feel now like having been through my own matrescence times and then having been through these massive upheavals in our family life and in my kids' lives that I can stand really strongly in what I say here. I really stand behind it and feel really unshakable in where I stand now as a mother and in my mothering identity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It doesn't surprise me that there is some magic that happens when you release a book and you're just like, oh, cool. I
Yeah,
thought I was just going to put that out there and people are going to buy it and be impacted. I guess I am also going to be impacted. Cool. Thanks for that
yeah.
lesson, universe.
I don't know if this happens with other people, but I don't know. I'm two for two now.
Yeah. Any other books on
Yeah,
the horizon? We'll find out if this is a you
yeah.
thing or if this is an everyone thing.
I know it makes me a little nervous. I do have
Yeah.
another couple books on the horizon. I'm like, oh God, what's gonna happen?
The
Yeah.
lessons are coming.
Yeah, totally.
Can you tell us a bit about the four elements of radical transformation that you talk about in your book and how having this information for women can really help them to step into their journey of motherhood? I want to say with more ease, but just in general, probably, because I think even knowing them for me was helpful. I don't know if it's going to make it easier though.
Yeah, legit. Well, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Um,
I'll let you know, Jessie. I'll let you know.
yeah, please do. Please do. You can road test it. Um, well, we've been road testing it for a long time now with mothers. But so the four elements of radical transformation are this model that I created to describe the kind of the arc of the process of matrescence. And so I first developed this model to work with mothers and matrescence because that was kind of my main gig at the time. But I've since kind of expanded it. So it's actually applicable to um, any transformation that we go through. And hopefully, there's this idea of meta skills, right? That when we learn how to do something once, we sort of, we take these kind of wider skills and capacities and carry it into future experiences. So I'm hoping, in many ways, if we're able to traverse matrescence with more ease, maybe the next transformation that you go through in your life, you'll have some tools and resources at your fingertips. So the four elements, I talked about before how we kind of know that matrescence is a thing, but we don't necessarily know how it happens. So that's what the four elements is about. And the four elements are earth, water, air, and fire. Um, so I'll kind of go over them briefly to describe how they work. So earth is the first element, and this is a time of really orienting to everything that has changed in your life, because our lives are ecosystems, and so when one part of that ecosystem changes, everything else changes too. It's like a domino effect, right? So you have a baby, and all of a sudden, your partnership doesn't feel the same. Your relationship with your body is different. Maybe you feel different about your career or the place you live or your family or your friends. Like the ripple effect is huge and it's really overwhelming. And so, earth is just about kind of getting grounded, getting your toes in the earth of what's true for you now, like noticing and naming everything that has changed. And it seems deceptively simple, but it's pretty powerful. And I kind of liken the earth phase to, when you're like lost in the woods, they tell you don't go crashing around looking for the trail, like sit down and take stock of your surroundings. So that's what earth is all about. We get a lot of messages from our culture that say, go look for the trail, like find the new normal, go back to
Mhm.
work, go visit your friend, like whatever you're gonna do. Get your body back, etc., etc. No, no, we gotta sit down, take stock. Then we move into water. And water is the element of grief, release, letting go. It also kind of encompasses all of those really maybe ambivalent feelings about motherhood, even rage and anger. Um, it's the washing away, that watery work of the person that you are no longer. So any time of change in our lives asks us to become someone new and to let go of an old version of ourselves. And even if that change is really positive, like motherhood is for many people, um, we have grief and you're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to miss your old self and all of the things that you used to be able to do. And you're allowed to have big feelings about that. And that's what water is. Air is the element of liminal space, the in between, where we say everything is up in the air. Like I don't know who I am anymore. I have a baby in my house and I look after it, but I don't feel, fully embodied in this identity. I don't feel integrated in this identity as mother. Um, and it's really uncomfortable, as is water. These are the two most uncomfortable phases. Because we have a culture that like prides us on having goals and having an identity, a strong sense of ourselves and where we're headed, and hopefully it's upward and forward and excuse me, all of those good things. Um, and so the liminal space is the opposite of any of that, and it can be tough for that reason. There's a lot of potential there. And then we move into fire, and fire is, what everybody wants to skip to, which is this time when you start to really explore who you're becoming and you kind of kindle those embers that have been growing and really start to explore who you are now. And so that's kind of the overarching process. And there are tools and resources and practices that you can do at every step along the way to kind of, I liken it to being like trail markers on a trail. I hike a lot and I sometimes get myself a little lost or I think that I'm lost and I'm walking along and I'm like, I think that's the trail, but I don't know. And just when I'm starting to worry and thinking I need to get out my compass or something, I'll look up and see a trail marker. And it's just like, oh my God, the relief of it. Okay, I'm here. I'm still on the trail. I'm not at the end yet, but I have something to orient to. And that's how I hope the four elements feel. They're not like a recipe for becoming a mother, because this is going to look different for everybody and it's going to take different amounts of time for everybody. But it's like a trail marker that says, hey, if this is how you're feeling right now, here are some things that might help. And also, always, this is normal. Like that's kind of what, the implicit sort of idea behind all of Mothershift is like, all this is normal. The messy parts, the complex parts, it's normal. Doesn't mean don't get help. It doesn't mean that, that this isn't hard, but it's normal.
I think sometimes we just need that permission slip to see like it's normal
Yeah.
because it doesn't feel normal and you feel like the weirdo, and especially where people aren't talking about it, you just feel lost and alone. And I felt that a lot through pregnancy too. I think obviously I don't have the baby, so I don't know what's going to happen after this. But like pregnancy too, that journey through growing a human very much feels similar with these elements of just like new identity and shifting into something new. And we just want to get to that fire stage. And for me, that fire stage would hopefully be like not vomiting anymore, but we're not there yet. So we're just
Yeah.
someday hoping for the fire stage, and in the Amazon Prime society that we live in of just like next day snap snap snap, like we want it now. And knowing that it takes time, and you talk in your book about like 2 to 3 years of this time and this process that it takes for us to learn this new version of ourselves, almost is really nice to have that permission slip of like, okay, it's going to take more time than 2 weeks or a 12-week maternity leave or whatever you're going to take time off of. Like, don't they tell you to do nothing for like 40 days? What a joke. Like 40 days is such a short period of time. Like to imagine going through all of this in that time. So it's just nice to know that this stuff takes time and it's normal. So I
Yeah.
love that, Jessie. If you
Yeah.
could give people listening one piece of advice for their shift into motherhood and their shift to anything in life, what would it be?
Mm. I think really it's what we just said. Like I think the biggest message here is about time and permission
Mm.
and like patience, I guess, is sort of the thing that comes out of that, right? That becoming a new version of yourself does take time. It's also worth the time it takes. Because I think what I see a lot of is, you know, feeling the pressure to kind of like bypass this whole process and get to the part where we feel like, I don't know, moms.
Mhm.
Or feel like whatever this new version of ourself is. And there's a lot of richness that we leave behind, a lot of potential, a lot of growth that we leave behind when we do that. And so it's hard. Um, and obviously get support. Like we are not meant to do this alone. And it's normal and it takes time. And you'll get there, you will. Yeah.
I like even just hearing that, like, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna take a long time, but like, it's gonna be worth it. And I appreciate that because, yeah, we always think the hard part, it's like, oh, like, I want to get out of this mud as fast as I can, please. But the mud can be good for you.
Yeah,
So maybe we'll lean into it a bit more. I love that.
totally.
Where can our listeners find you, connect with you online, and get your book? And also, just like to note, we are like all over North America. So, like, can people get your book if they're in the States too?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. So people can find me. My website is jessiharold.com. Um, I'm on Instagram. I write a monthly newsletter that is not on Substack, but in fact, its own thing called Imaginalia, which people really seem to enjoy reading. Um, and you can buy Mothershift everywhere. So it's published through Shambhala in the States. And so, you can get it at all the usual places. And if folks are listening who are local to you and me, there's also like a number of wonderful indie bookstores and places to pick it up. So just have a little dig around and it should be everywhere.
For our local peeps, can you give them a couple suggestions?
Yeah, totally. So Nurtured is one of the places that has a lovely stock in. It was where I took my little babies when they were
Oh,
young. And it was a very special place. And Bookmark for sure has copies signed. They both have signed copies, and chapters has like on both sides of the bridge have them as well, as far as I know. And I think there's a few other places too, but I'm not sure if they're in stock.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am loving this book, and it came at the perfect time for me
Uh,
where I'm like just stepping into this season, and I was like, oh, I didn't know I needed Jessie until I picked up this book and really started to dive into it a bit more because it's been really helpful. I was taking down the Christmas decorations and just like nodding along to all of the pieces. And I'm like, yes, like this is what we need. And this is what we need more women to know too through this journey. So thank you for creating something so
yeah.
magical. Can I
Yeah.
ask you a few questions I ask that every guest comes on the podcast?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Are you ready? Are you
I
ready?
hope so.
What's your favorite compliment to receive?
Hmm. Oh, shoot. Probably has something to do with like having done hard work because I'm a Capricorn. So
Ooh,
I see that you worked really hard at that and you did a good job. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I see you worked really hard at this book and you did a great job. I am truly
Ah,
enjoying it. And even every time you bring like
thanks.
another book, you're like, in this book, it's quoted. And I'm like, you read that many books, Jessie? Like, you go, girl. Like, you go. The research that's in this book, it just blows my mind. So I love it.
Thank you.
What's your favorite thing to do to boost your mood when you're feeling grumpy?
Oh, I go for a walk or a cold dip.
Ooh, you're a
Yeah.
dipper.
I'm a dipper.
Oh,
Yeah.
burr.
It's like a automatic, like I go down to the beach in one mood as like one person and I come back as a completely different human. It's
Oh, wow.
profound. Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you. I see
It's
I see
good.
everyone doing it now too this time of year and I'm like, sorry, can't. I'm pregnant. Do you have a song or a quote that boosts your confidence?
Oh, a song or a quote that boosts my confidence. Okay. Um, nobody's gonna know this song. It's called Everybody's Got Their Something, and I can't remember who it's by. It's really old. I think it was from like the Blue Crush soundtrack. I don't
Oh,
even know if people listening are even that's gonna date me in the biggest way. But you can all look it up on Spotify and
I'm going
well,
to.
yeah, yeah. Oh, do you know what's another one is Golden by Jill Scott. I love that one too.
I don't know that one either, but I'm gonna have to
All
check it
right.
out.
Well, I'm gonna picture you like bopping to these songs after we hang up here.
I will be. I can't wait. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Jessie, for being here and for sharing your magic with us and just being you and creating what you've created. I just appreciate it so much in this season.
Aw, thank you so much. I can't wait to hear how this lands when the rubber hits the road in a few weeks and you
Yeah,
actually have this little baby.
I'll keep you
Yeah.
posted. I'll keep you
I
posted
want to
and
be posted. Yeah,
I'm excited.
totally. Oh, I wish
Thanks
you
so
all the
much.
best. Oh, thank you so much too. Yeah.
What's up, sis? I am so glad we could hang out today. If you love this episode, send it to a friend or share it on your social media and tag me so I can personally thank you for helping me sprinkle some confidence in the world. And don't forget, you are magic. Let's show the world your shine.